KHTS studios here in Newhall. We're here with Congressman Mike Garcia to talk about his successes in the last year and to see what he has for the future. Mike, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Louis, thanks for having me again, and Happy New Year.
Well, thank you. So last year you had a lot going on for you, a lot of bills that you had worked on and a lot of things that have come up unexpectedly that you worked on. We're going to start it off here with the Military Spouse Act. I understand that it passed the House of Representatives and it's headed for the Senate. If you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit just about what that act is and what it's intended to do.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I experienced firsthand, and a lot of my friends who are in the military are struggling with. This is called the Military Spouse Licensing Relief Act, and what it does is it allows the spouses of active duty military members to cross-deck their licensing from one state to the next. And I'll give you a real-life example. If you get orders from, say, Virginia to California right now, your spouse, if he or she is a real estate agent, for instance, or a teacher or a beautician, has to requalify and get recredentialed in California for their job. And this may take, several months. In some cases, in some states, it takes a couple of years. California is probably one of the tougher states to get requalified in several professions. So while they're struggling with that, these families, these military families who sacrifice so much already and who we ask to do so much for our country with deployments and below average quality of life, now are going to a single income, and that's a huge financial detriment, obviously, to them. So this Military Spouse Relief Act basically allows all 50 states to recognize the credentials of the active duty member spouses. This isn't lowering the standards. This isn't something that's a federal government overreach. These are active duty federal government employees who are serving our country and are just trying to make ends meet, and allows their spouses to effectively continue to work. And it's similar to what we do with driver's licenses right now. If you're on active duty and you get orders from one state to another, your driver's license is recognized across state lines, and you don't have to go reprove to the state of California that you know how to drive a car. And the same is true here, where the spouses should not have to reprove that they know how to do their jobs and contribute. And honestly, this is something that benefits our communities as well, because, as you know, we have a shortage of professionals in California right now in the form of nurses, doctors, teachers. We can always benefit from having more. So it's a win-win. Looking forward to the Senate hopefully getting this through and signing it into law here pretty soon.
Where does that stand? When does that reach a final verdict in the Senate, whether it passes or not?
Well, we'll see. It was not included in the NDAA conversations through the Senate, so we're pushing to have it now reintroduced somewhere else. And Senator Lee from Utah is the lead on that in the Senate. So tough to tell. It's murky right now with the way things are happening in D.C., especially on the Senate side. A lot of horse trades going on, but we're not going to quit on this one. This is something that has bipartisan support. We have, good bipartisan support in the House, but also in the Senate. So this is something that will get done. It's just a matter of timing and hopefully getting put into something that's meaningful.
And would you say do you know exactly how many percentage of the active military have spouses right now? Is it about 50% plus, or is it a little less than that or more?
Yeah, I think it's about 50%. I'd have to go look at the numbers, but, at least half of them are probably married, and I would say that a good 20 to 30% of them are affected by this. And this parallels the other effort that I'm pushing for and getting traction on, which is to raise the base salary of our service members. So it's kind of wild to think that you have to be in for 4 years before you get to the equivalent of what is, $15 an hour salary for base pay in the military. These kids are making, when they join the military, about $22,000 a year. This is why they're going on deployments, putting their lives on the line and making these sacrifices. So between the base pay salary, which we've gotten tremendous traction on, we've got the commitment of the House and Senate leadership to address this and put together a holistic compensation package for especially our junior enlisted folks, and then dealing with this Spousal Relief Act that affects probably a quarter of the families that are on active duty are benefiting from these types of licensing relief acts. This is a big deal. This is something that's going to incentivize people to join the military. It's going to incentivize them to stay in the military, and will overcome some of these recruiting and retention problems that we currently have.
Very good. Well, this is Louis Diaz coming to you live from Newhall, sitting here talking with Mike Garcia, talking about the last year. Another thing that happened last year towards the end of August that came to a lot of people, maybe by some surprise, maybe some not, was us leaving Afghanistan. And a lot of people, a lot of Americans were left there, and we know that your team has been working very hard to help try to get back some of the Americans that are there back here to home, wherever that may be. Where does all that stand right now? How many people have you guys rescued, and what else are you guys doing to further that number?
Yeah, just so proud of my team on this one, especially my district director, Charles Navarro, who, he represents me in the district when I'm not here. He's working hard for the constituents, and he himself started leading effectively an operations center out of our offices in his house for a period of about 3 months, directly liaising between special operations folks on the ground in Afghanistan and their families and family members who were trying to get folks out. And with his efforts and through his efforts along, cooperating with a couple of other offices, we were able to successfully get out about 115 American as well as Afghan partners, SIV partners, and get them back home, most of them coming back here to the United States. So that's a big deal. That's literally 115 people who are not running for their lives right now and who are living safely again here in the United States because of our office's action. So I'm super proud of that. There's a lot more to get done. There's still thousands more there between Americans, SIV, visa applicants, folks who deserve and who were told they could come to the United States. There's still thousands more stranded in Afghanistan. And this is something, Louis, we can't let Americans forget. This is something that we can't just let lapse in our memories, and that this was a botched withdrawal that, frankly, was avoidable. This was a man-made problem, and this administration screwed it up. And now we have Americans effectively being held hostage in conditions in Afghanistan under the Taliban and ISIS-K that are truly life-threatening. So we're going to continue to do everything we can to help Americans get out. This government, our federal government, the State Department right now is not doing its job, and it's a heartbreaking story when you see some of the stories of children being sold into slavery just so the parents can make ends meet, and the torture and killings that are happening of folks who were stranded there, who were our partners at one point, put their lives on the line for us, now running for their own lives, and we have given them very little support. We won't forget. We can't forget. We need to continue to do everything to support them.
Yeah. And another topic that I want to discuss that made big news, not only here in Santa Clarita, but all throughout Los Angeles County and California. Back in late May, early June, you were part of a very large drug bust up in the Antelope Valley in partnership with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and a few other departments. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you did up there and what you guys accomplished?
Yeah, and it's actually all throughout our district right now. These operations continue. It started in the Antelope Valley, and again, just proud of my team for listening to our constituents. We were getting phone calls from folks complaining about these illegal marijuana grows happening in the middle of the high desert out in the Antelope Valley. Literally hundreds of acres, thousands of acres where people would just set up shop, start growing weed, come in and effectively raping the ground, stealing the water, using indentured servants. Most of them were illegal immigrants that were here paying off their debts, working these fields. Just a nasty situation. And frankly, we were the only office that kind of took it seriously enough. And I went out there, saw it firsthand, flew with the sheriffs out there in Palmdale and overflew the valley. And I was just blown away by how many hundreds, if not thousands, of these illegal fields were being grown. These are Mexican cartels, Chinese cartels, Armenian cartels, bad guys operating. And I reached out to Sheriff Villanueva, LA County Sheriff Villanueva, and he said, I'll take a look at it. And when he saw it, he was blown away too, and he came in and put the resources behind it that we needed. We were successful in helping him get funding. The LA County supervisors as well got some funding for him, and they conducted over the course of 10 days what ended up becoming the largest drug bust in our nation's history, seizing about $1.2 billion in illegal marijuana, something like 3 dozen handguns, several dozen arrests, So these are bad guys doing bad things to our environment, to our water tables. They were literally lowering the water tables out there in the midst of the drought with how much water they were stealing. They were finding dead bodies in the fields of these busts. They were finding dead animals throughout who were eating the fertilizer and passing away in their fields. So this is really bad stuff. We tackled it. We're continuing to work it. The cartels haven't given up. They continue to try to come back, but we've supported law enforcement throughout all of this and getting them the necessary funding and some of the bureaucracy and red tape removed so they could go out and do their jobs. It's happening indoors as well, and throughout Santa Clarita Act and Agua Dulce, we're seeing these illegal grows now inside, and so we're tackling that as well. But it's a federal, state, and local government issue, and we're so proud of this one. It's a big deal, and we're going to keep our foot on the pedal on it.
So do we know how long these operations were going on for before you found out about it? Obviously, if there's this many hundreds of, if not thousands of acres being processed with marijuana, those had to have been there for quite a while before it broke through. Do we know how long they were there and when they got started?
Well, it was pretty insidious. It started probably 2 years ago with just one or two here and there, and they would get knocked down. And but what was the perfect storm, unfortunately, was this whole defund the police movement, where they actually literally did defund L.A. County, put law enforcement to the tune of over $100 million that was cut from their budgets. And when they did that, it was the task force that go after things like this that got defunded. So you're in a position now where there's not enough money, there's not enough people in the midst of a pandemic where law enforcement, the sheriffs were undermanned, understaffed already. And effectively no one was doing anything about it, and it was allowed to flourish in the middle of our high desert without anyone really checking it. And so it went too long, it got too far, and we were able to camp it out, and we got to keep, making sure that it doesn't come back. And you simply got to enforce a law, and that's the bottom line, is we finally, with Sheriff Villanueva, found someone who was willing to enforce the law. And now we've got to figure out how to actually charge these people once we arrest them. And our district attorney, Gascon, is the problem we've got right now in that regard. So we're going to keep fighting the fight, but a lot of the policies right now at the state level are hindering our ability to keep these bad guys actually behind bars right now.
Yeah, that perfect segue in our next topic. With the new year here, there's new policies that you're going to want to tackle and jump on and get moving forward. And I know one of those is what you just touched on. District Attorney George Gascon, you put out a press release this afternoon talking about how you called on him to resign. If you want to talk to us about why you think that would be beneficial and what he's doing that's affecting law enforcement and getting these people put behind bars.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, when you look at what he's doing, it's remarkable how bad this guy actually is and how much he's actually doing to aid the criminals across the board. This is a guy who is allowing people to go early. This is a guy that is, or to get out of prison early. This is a guy that has allowed things like enhancements to be revoked. And bad people who commit really terrible crimes are now eligible for parole early to get out on the streets and be a menace to society all over again. He's also not charging people, frankly. And a lot of these folks who would have been charged with felonies just 10 years ago under Prop 47 and Prop 57 are now getting charged as misdemeanors. And the DA, Gascon, is like the penguin from Gotham City, where he's actually enabling the criminals more than he's working for the good guys in our case. And he's letting the bad guys go. He's putting pedophiles and rapists into our district who would have otherwise been behind bars for the rest of their lives. He started this program called the READY program, which allows a 17-year-old who commits these atrocious crimes to effectively not even be charged because he's technically a minor. He's allowing them to go to a rehab program even though they may have committed some sort of sexual assault or held someone at knife point, for instance. This is someone who would not go in front of a judge, would not be charged with anything. They'd be put in a rehab program with no record, no documentation, and no way to track this individual as they go through the system. This is how you breed criminals, and what he's doing is effectively allowing these guys to evolve into worse creatures and effectively make us less secure than we were a couple of years ago. And in the end, it's not about, Republicans versus Democrats. It's not left versus right. It's about doing what's right. It's about providing security to our constituents. And, he's our sheriff, right? And we were able to partner, he and I, together on this illegal drug bust. He's also a Democrat, and we don't care about that. We just care about doing our jobs, bringing security to our neighborhoods. But we need a district attorney who's also going to charge these felons, keep people behind bars, and do his job. And that's unfortunately not what Gascon is interested in right now. So, yeah, I called on him to resign. I think we need to get rid of him. We need to start paying attention to who we elect for these positions. And, again, I don't care if it's a Democrat, as long as they're willing to enforce the law and actually protect the constituents. That's the purpose of the district attorney, and Gascon is not doing that.
So that's interesting. Something that we report on a lot here at KHTS is something you just talked about. There's a lot of people that are being arrested, and they're not even given the opportunity. They're just being given a $0 bail. So a lot of the time these guys get arrested, and they're just given a citation, and they're released. Something that you said, though, that I wasn't aware of, if I understood you correctly, once the district attorney dismisses these people, if they ever get arrested or pulled over and their records looked up, there's nothing that says that they were previously arrested for a felony and let go. They just have a clean record.
With some of these programs, that is the case. There's one called the READY program, which is a rehabilitative diversion program for minors who commit bad crimes. That is the case. There would be no record. There would be no history of them. There would be no means to track them or to help them get better. You're seeing people right now with these smash and grabs break into high-end stores. We've had a couple in Santa Clarita now as well. They grab thousands of dollars worth of loot. They walk out. If they're caught or even arrested at all, they're released with zero bail right now. They're attributing it to COVID. They're attributing it to the overcrowding of our prisons. And let's be very clear that the origins of this are not COVID. The origins of this are the fact that our population in the last 40 years in California has doubled, but we have not invested in more capacity for our prisons. When you look at the state level, California really hasn't gotten above what it was maybe 30 years ago in terms of capacity. So our population doubled, but our capacity in our prisons did not. And to compensate for that, our brilliant elected officials in Sacramento decided that they were just going to change the definition of crimes, make felonies misdemeanors, make misdemeanors slap on the wrists, and then make sure that anyone who would normally be put into a prison is actually allowed to just stay in a local jail. That was AB 109 and the bill that California passed to make sure that happened. So what we've done is effectively just change the definitions of crime, but there's not fewer criminals out there. There's just fewer criminals in jail and in prison, and they're out on the streets now. And the zero bail thing is just it's ludicrous to me. Again, it's a tactic of Gotham City and not Santa Clarita or the rest of LA County. Unfortunately, they're actually doing that right now.
For those of you just tuning in, this is Louis Diaz sitting here with Mike Garcia in the KHTS studio here in Newhall. Mike, we're coming to the end here. Other than working on helping law enforcement succeed and keeping the citizens protected and helping the military, what are some of the other items on your radar for 2022 coming up ahead of you here?
Well, I face a tough re-election, obviously, so that's going to be one of our big concerns. We're going to need to get re-elected and continue to represent the folks of our district. It's been a huge honor. I want to continue to do that. We have great ideas. The thing that I think I'm probably most proud of is the casework that we've been doing for our constituents. In the last year, we helped over 1,000 constituents, 1,015 in fact, with federal casework. We've responded to 8,700 calls, emails, and letters. We've held 6 town halls. So this is the type of communication and supporting our constituents directly that I think I'm most proud of and my team. So if anyone has any needs or assistance needed with any federal agencies, the IRS, the VA, whoever it is, please reach out to us. We can help out. We can help out with things like visas, passports, et cetera, Department of State. Don't deal with it if you're already hitting a wall. Reach out to our office, and someone on my staff will help expedite that. We'll continue to do that, obviously, in 2021. And then another priority of mine is to get rid of the state and local tax deduction cap of $10,000 in this next session. This is something that was meant to penalize Californians. This is basically a cap on how much we can deduct from our federal taxes for state and local taxes. It's a $10,000 limit. We're looking to get that removed. That will help Californians hopefully stay in California and not want to leave for Texas and Idaho and Florida. So that'll be the other big thing that we're pushing here in 2022.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike, for coming by today and talking to us about your last year's successes and what you have looking forward here. Thank you for coming by, and we're here for you. Whenever you need to come by and talk more, we'll be here. So thank you, Mike.
Sounds good, Louis. Thank you.
All right.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.